Well, hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of 1025. Today is Maundy, Thursday. It's a time during Holy Week where we gather together to celebrate the Lord's Supper. And so I'm here in our altar guild room because this is what should be happening today. Just as Jesus' disciples were sent to make preparations for the Passover meal, so we should be making preparations right now to celebrate the Lord's Supper. And yet, sadly, that won't be happening today. And I know that there are many of you that lament that, and I join with you in that lament. Many of you have longed to gather to celebrate the Lord's Supper. And I've fielded questions from you. Questions of, Pastor, what about communion? Or, Pastor, what if we did some sort of a drive-through communion experience? Or I even had one person who texted me and said, if I set out the bread and the wine, would you consecrate it over the internet? Hashtag want communion bad. And I get it. I know what it is to desire the sweetness of our God, to receive his body and his blood, and to know that that was shed for your forgiveness, for your benefit. I even think of our confirmation students who tonight should have been the first time that they were receiving communion with their families. And that's a long-standing tradition here at St. John's that won't be happening this year. So what do we do when we find ourselves in this place where we can't gather to receive communion? Different churches have chosen to respond to that differently. And as an elder team here at St. John's, we've had significant conversation about this. Some people have chosen to do online communion. Others have chosen the drive-through communion route. And yet, for now, as a church, we've chosen the route of fasting. I know it's not what we really want, but in order to honor the stay-at-home orders of our state, in order that we might not put others in harm's way, we're choosing for a period of time to fast from receiving communion. And this isn't the first time that the church has been put in this place. I was reading a little bit about the Spanish flu back in 1918 to 1920, and many churches were unable to gather for worship during that time, which meant for a period of time, their people went without the Lord's Supper. And yet, here's what we need to be reminded of in that. Just because we can't receive God's forgiveness through the reception of the Lord's Supper doesn't mean that we can't receive his grace and his forgiveness through the Word. Yes, the Lord's Supper is a means of grace, but there's more than one. There's more than one way that God provides his forgiveness for us. So I would invite you, just like the ancient Israelites, when they found themselves in the place of exile, where they were unable to gather at the temple to worship, and even there to watch as the sacrifices happened and be reminded as that blood was sprinkled upon them, almost in a sacramental nature, that their sins were forgiven. Even when they were in exile, what did they do? They had the scrolls. They had God's word, and they dug into that, and they clung to that. And that's what we do as a church at this time. We cling to God's word until we're able to gather again. But when we do, oh, how sweet that will be. And I don't know if I'm the only one who finds it somewhat ironic that here we are in the season of Lent. Our theme this year is This is the Feast. It was supposed to culminate with the receiving the Lord's Supper on Maundy, Thursday, and to feast upon God's body and his blood. We were flipping the fast this year, and yet now we're reverting to the fast. And I don't know if any of you have ever gone through a period of fasting in your life. Maybe it was a 48-hour fast for a doctor's appointment. Maybe it was a fast where you actually gave up sweets during Lent. But here's what I know as I've fasted in my life. When I get to that place where I'm able to eat again, to eat what I want, and personally, I'm someone who craves sweets. And so when you're able to eat something sweet, oh, it's so good. And so let me promise you, let me reassure you, we will get through this. And when the stay-at-home ban is lifted and when we're able to gather again for worship, we will gather together and we will receive communion. And it will be so good. Thanks for tuning in today. We'll see you again.